Hey everybody, welcome back to Scribal in the Dining Room with Camille. Um, Hope everyone has been doing well these last couple weeks. Hopefully we have sound this week. Yes, okay, good. So that's something. Um, Something simple this week, kind of back to basics. We're going through back in time to the mid 14th century, 1350s-ish, and going to do bar and ivy border, just a little one. There's no actual manuscript this week that this is based off of because there's a bazillion out there and they're all similar. You know, they all have some similar characteristics. So I've just drawn a little bitty border bookmark style that sort of gives you the basics of all of that style. So we will start by going through some history. Just a couple examples of scrolls that I did. My very first scroll was a bar and ivy for the Canton of Lion's End out in Ostgard. Number one. I'm gonna bring that up. We'll get those. Oh nope, that's Ian's Grandmaster. That's okay. We'll figure it out. Okay, there we go. Hi, there's people here. Okay, good. We have people. Hello, friends. So yeah, going through. This was 2008. 12 years ago, I did this one, and that's your basic bar and ivy. It doesn't have very many ivy leaves, but we definitely got the bars. You can see it's just 3 colors. Hi, Lisbeth. Have we allowed for a proper buffer? Yes, we have a proper buffer. There's just people coming in. We could start over. No need to start over. Anyway, I'm just going to keep talking and y'all can catch up. Hi, Colette. So anyway, very first scroll I ever did, learning. We started, but you can see with the bar and ivy, there's really only 3 colors you need: blue, red, and gold, and then black and white. Hi, Aloysius, hooray, and Jillian, hurrah. So yeah, you've got bars, you've got ivies, and little critters. So all of the good things. Go ahead to the next one. This is, I think, the second scroll I ever did. This is a Grandmaster Bowman for a fellow household member. This one is based on the Book of the Hunt from 1350 to 1375. I think Gaston Phoebus is the sponsor of that, and you can see many more leaves. Still have the bars. There's the vining details we have, but again, it's blue, red, and gold. One detail to note is typically your leaves go, if not in a pattern, you never have, or seldom have, there's no never here, the same color next to each other. So it'll either go blue, red, gold, or blue, gold, red. They kind of alternate. Third bar and ivy style. This isn't my third scroll, but we can see we're getting a little bit better at the leaves. Again, blue, red, and gold, vines. Spacing is important. You don't want leaves on top of each other. Oftentimes there are little flowers thrown in as well. Sometimes, I think up on the versal there, we have just a black vine with solid gold leaves. If you're going to have a solid color of leaf, then it's usually going to be gold. So little detail there. next. And then this is another one from the Book of the Hunt by Gaston Phoebus. We've got flowers added into this one in the middle section there on the left border, coming off the versal, as well as your black vine with your gold leaves and your regular barn ivy vine with the ivy leaves. So that's sort of the basics there. Your bar component and all your vine work and leaf work will also have white work included. This one also has some tooling done in the gold leaf. We will not be doing gold leaf on this because it takes too long for the mini autumn to set, so no tooling. But that was another thing in there. So back to it there. Yeah, the vines being even. Sometimes what I've done is just drawn a simple line and then kind of painted them so they're the right width. So there's a couple different ways you can sort of play with it and make it work, and what works for one person well may not work for the other. So sort of practice and play. So I'm using tonight as an opportunity to get into some paint that I bought years and years and years ago and have never opened. We are going to try out my M-gram gouache. So that's exciting. I've got titanium white, ultramarine blue, and pyrrole or primary red. So this should be fun. I don't expect it to behave that differently than whole bean, but we'll see how it goes. So those are your three main, and then of course we want black for outlining and imitation gold because we're not doing gold leaf on that. So got something in my eye. Excuse me. There we go. Just like gold leaf, I like to start with gold paint. Sometimes we'll outline the gold, sometimes not. I'm working off a palette that I've already got some gold in already, so we'll start with that. So you want your handy mixing brush, not very pointy, but still usable, and then your number 2 round for the paint. So gold paint, and I think we have discussed it in other classes, there's not a whole lot in here, but a little bit of paint and a lot of water goes a long way. Yeah, I know, never opened paint. What is wrong with me? I've had it for literally years. No, I've got the whole bean and it's open, and why should I open another tube of paint? Because I already have one, and now I've had it for so long, I can't ruin it by opening it. So tonight is a historic moment. We are opening the paint. Very exciting. No longer lost and forlorn. It was in fact waiting for this very moment. We just didn't know it until now. So rinse that. So your gold, I think that's pretty good there, very liquidy. So the gold bits are your fancy end caps, and oftentimes there's a little bit in the middle. The brand of paint that I haven't yet opened is M. Graham and Company. I think it's French, maybe. But as I recall, the reason why I got it, some of them were, the binder was honey. This one says it's gum arabic on the ultramarine, and also on the red, and also on the white. So I may be remembering that wrong, but fun new paint. We'll see what it looks like soon. Yes, M. Graham, Graham. and Company. So yeah, and they've got an extensive line, and I've heard good things. So we shall see if we paint good things also. I'm going to add one more drop of water to the gold there. And here we go. So start at the top and work your way down. And again, we do a little bit of outline, but with the gold, it's important to sort of push puddles around. And the nice thing too about Bar and Ivy is the whole thing is going to be outlined in black, which hides a multitude of sins if we hiccup and blorp the paint, as does happen. And again, with the gold paint, you want to make sure you keep mixing it because it has mica in it generally, and that tends to settle out, and your pigment can settle out, so you'll go along painting and suddenly some of it won't be shiny or it'll be another color, which is not what we want. We want a nice even ground. And I think I have a bubble. There we go. Well, depends on the sin, I suppose. If we will apply sins before finishing the piece, it could happen. There's a tiger on it, so, you know, anything could happen. Watercolor paints with a honey binder. Okay, cool. The Mackle, yes, I saw a facsimile of the Macclesfield. I don't remember where we were. It might have been the Boston Museum of Science, or Boston, not Museum of Science, I haven't been there for years. Museum of Fine Art, there we go. Hey, Cher! Oh, buffering problems. Twitch has issues some nights. Anyway, Macclesfield Psalter, I saw a facsimile of for a really good price, and for whatever reason I didn't buy it, and I'm kind of regretting that. But it'll come around again, I hope. Oh, I'm sorry, Cher. That makes me sad. You finally made it to a class and now it won't go. Got the bottom bit doing gold here. And off we go. We'll get the video problems fixed here. So on the gold and the red and the blue and the leaves on the vines, or the flowers and the birds, no birds, oftentimes if they're ivy leaves, they're on a thicker vine. As I said, not always. Most of the time. Hello, who's Happy Phantom Girl? Welcome. Most of the time with the narrow leaves, like I said, it's going to be a solid gold leaf. But I have found examples where they do the mixed colors. So we'll do the mixed colors. I like to not have clusters of, oh, hi, yes, that's right. Hooray. Yes, household ghosts. You have no idea. We'll do mixed colors on this vine here because we like to do the white work and shading. So we'll do red, blue, and gold. This one will be gold, and then we'll skip to one, two, and We'll do this one gold because the other one is too close to the other gold. And then that's the last one on there. This leaf probably should be gold because it's coming right out of the middle section there. And that's on a separate vine. So now we can go down to the lower vine and make happy patterns. We'll do this one. And I forgot the little stem on that leaf, but we can add that in at the end. There's your sin. I found the sin. And this one will be gold. The sin of an uncompleted draft. And the other two will be red and blue. There we go. I even have a good number. And there we are. So that should be it for the gold paint. Oh, yes, you missed the sin. So the sin is right here, right there, or it's not right there. And that's the problem. I forgot a stem. But it's okay. We can fix it with the black paint. That's how it works. So next color we will do will be the red. So there we are, first time unscrewing the cap of the primary red from M. Graham. That's very pretty, very bright. Squeeze a little bit into the palette here. That is much brighter, much more pure than the geranium I'm used to with whole bean. But I think it'll work fine. So two different reds are used or seen really in the bar and ivy type. You've got your primary red, which is carmine, which has a little bit of blue in it, or geranium is another good whole bean color. And we have the M. Graham here, and the one I have is the primary red. So added a few drops there. And the other red you often see is flame red, which is a more orangey red. And that one's in some manuscripts as just another color. On leaves, you'll oftentimes also see the occasional green one or purple one. So for a little fun, a little special touch, you can throw a weird colored leaf in there and everybody will go, what? What did you do that for? Yeah, Winsor Newton's a great one, Gwen. I like the whole bean because it's what I have and I don't have to buy more. Winsor Newton white, I like. They seem to be a little thicker paints, which can be good or bad, a little gluier. So we've got the wide bars here with the gold attached to them. And then as kind of a border, we have a very narrow strip. So you would have alternating colors. We'll do red for the skinny bar on the top, and then we'd make the lower bar red and then do the reverse with the blue here and blue on the skinny one on the bottom. So here we go. First touch on paper with paint from M. Graham. And it's acting like paint, which is encouraging. Nicely puddly, very smooth, good color, good coverage. It's a different brand, and it is an artist gouache, so it's not like your Artist Loft or Reeves, which are the more student brand ones, which is nice. So good, smooth, creamy gouache, and it should dry to the nice matte Winsor Newton red with cadmium orange. Ah, okay. So yeah, flame red, if you don't have it, play with adding a little bit of yellow or a little bit of yellowish orange, and there's a little blorp because I've been out building ponds all day and my hands aren't quite as steady as they could be. Now for Bar and Ivy, if you like and you have a ruling pen, that lovely little lining tool, that is a perfect tool to use to get all your outer lines nice and straight so you have good borders to play with. I am not using it tonight because I am overconfident and think I can draw straight lines. But there's one red, and we'll hold on to the red and the blue. We're going to mix it with a little bit of white later towards the end so we can do white work. But that is filling in quite nicely. Nice and smooth. And again, I'm not hardly touching the paper with the brush bristles. I'm just putting down a puddle of color and kind of smushing it around to get my base color patches down. Go across there. And across. So there's the red bars all set. And now we can do leaves. Let's see, there's a lot of red here, but that's all right. It'll get some variety in there when we add the white. So there's a red, and so that's blue. That's gold, blue, red, gold, blue, red, gold. And if you accidentally paint a red leaf where you should have painted a blue leaf, you're probably the only one that's going to know, unless you tell people. So there's a scribal secret for you new scribes. You're the only one who knows exactly what mistakes you made, so don't tell everybody. It's hard. It's really hard. But they don't need to know. You get your trusted confidant, and then you tell them. But not the whole world. When somebody says, "Oh, it's beautiful," you say, "Thank you," and you bite your tongue before you tell them everything that's wrong with it. It took me a lot of years to learn that, and it's very hard, but I'm getting better. Yes, your trusted confidant and the entire internet. Absolutely. And I'm catching up here. Yes, bloop bloop goes the red. No, no achoo. I do not want to achoo. That is not good. So let's see. We'll do this one going red. And I think that one's, yeah, we'll do that one. Might be slightly out of order, but no one needs to know. In the spirit of honesty, don't want to mislead. Well, yes, but if somebody says it's beautiful and there's not a thing wrong with it and they don't know any better, you say thank you. And I mean, if you like pointing out your flaws, then that's, honesty is a good thing. But don't be too self-deprecating, because lady, you do good work. Aw, cat sitting behind computers. I think ours are both asleep. No, Mina just woke up. We may have a visiting cat. Blue is zonked out upstairs. He's not gonna. He may join us later. All right. So red is down. That's very nice. Good solid coverage. Red can be a little tricky. Reds and greens and yellows sometimes can be a little more translucent than you want them to be, but this one seems to be pretty good, and it is definitely bright. Okay, next up, ultramarine blue. Brandy new M. Graham. And there we go. That's a bigger blorp than usual. So let's see what we've got here. Nice dark blue, but there she goes brightening up once I've added water. Oh, Mina says hi. Little tiny squeak. And yes, you do more than try, Lisbetta. You do beautiful work. And is there a trick to combating? Yes, you can add zinc white Colette to make your translucent paints slightly less translucent. I have the Scribal Box So Fun back from Winifred, so one of these days I'll dig through it and actually find the zinc white and actually do my own playing with it, because right now I'm just taking the word of everybody in the world on the internet, which is always a good idea. Maybe. But zinc white is the white that doesn't change the essential nature of your paint. You know, if you add titanium white to anything, it's going to make it lighter, no matter how little you add. But the zinc white is just an opacifier. There we go. Okay, so ultramarine blue. Again, nice and smooth. Seems to be good color, good coverage. And I'm not sure, so Holbein differentiates. They have two ultramarines. There's an ultramarine deep, which is a more purpley, and an ultramarine light, which I think is a lot closer to what this seems to be. I'm not getting that darker purple undertone from this. So this is more the straight ultramarine blue. Which again, there's times you want to use the ultramarine deep. Again, if your source is a more purpley source, it's also the one that comes with the starter kit. I had to buy the ultramarine light as a separate tube once I figured out I liked doing this after 3 or 4 scrolls, and started getting into more paint. So there's your top blue bar, and now we'll get on the little vine down at the bottom here. And snug that color right up against. We'll go between it all with again, nice black outlines to smooth everything out and hide any wrinkles we have, at least on the paint. And I'm doing this on a regular Bristol board. Another interesting adventure in opacity comes from using pergamonata. Pergamonata is great for showing you if your paint layer isn't quite even, especially when it's held up in court for all to see and nice and backlit, and you look at it and it's all blotchy, but everyone else will say ooh ah, and it will be beautiful. Difference in the darkness of blue partway along its length. Well, part of that is because it's drying, part of it might be the camera, and part of it might be that there is in fact a difference because I may have gone thicker at one end or the other. Catching up again on the chat. Yes, right? When you add that other color, magic happens. And there's going to be even more magic when we add the white and the different shades of blue and red. So just you wait, it's going to be great. And yes, the tiger, in fact, is going to be blue. You've caught my Easternness coming through. I figure we have people on the video Scribal group all across the country. It's kind of crazy and awesome. But we're based in the East, so again, the nice thing about the barn ivy, you can add whatever critter you want. If you're in the mid-realm, put a dragon on there. On tier, I think, has a lion, so just add some floof around the tiger's neck and you have a lion. It's great. But yes, we're gonna put Sparky on the scroll here. But we're not going to do him until we have a lighter shade of blue that we've mixed. So your final leaves are definitely the easy ones because you just paint whatever ones are left with the last color. Leaves, too, going back to different styles of things. There's a whole bunch of, you know, as many different trees in the forest are there leaves on the barn ivy. Your ivy leaf, this is more a traditional ivy leaf. It's just got the 5 little points. But there's some fancy ivy leaves out there that are, they're 3 sets of 3 points. There's some that are almost just little triangles. If you get, maybe that was a new monk, I don't know. But there's certainly different degrees of complexity that you can get into, and then add the flowers, and there's little droplet things that also happen with your leaves. Oh dear, is the internet not behaving? Sadness. Let's see. Something, oh yes, difference in darkness and grade school you found frustrating with paints. It is a thing. I mean, it's a lot of practice. Again, I keep saying that, but the more you do it, the easier it should get. You know, and then you'll get some more consistent paint, you know, laying down, as it were. Words are a thing. Yeah, and part of that too is quality of paint. The reason why I don't recommend Reeves or Artist Loft or any of the sets of 18 to 24 that you can get for $10, great price, crappy paint. The pigment is sometimes not ground as fine as it could be, or the binder, the gum arabic, may not be of good quality, so it doesn't mix well, and it will just settle in different ways, most of which you don't want it to. So that's my, again, speech on don't buy Reeves. So, but I'm happy, you know, so far with the M-gram. We'll play with that a little bit more. We've got, let's see, I bet I can use the white that's already there. So white and white work, I find you want to have a dedicated brush for, and clean water and all that. Also, to make white work easier, I find you want to start with a fresh squeeze of white paint. It just seems to mix better and be more consistent. So your mileage may vary. Also for white work, we have lovely Dr. P.H. Martin, which I'll pull out in a bit here. But right now I'm mixing up an older well of white that I had because I'm going to mix it with the blue so we can do our little tiger up there. Yes, start with the good material because then you won't get frustrated with the crappy material and go, I suck at painting. Well, you probably don't suck at painting. You just have sucky materials and you get frustrated. So start with the good stuff, even though it's a little more expensive. And that's why, borrow the good stuff. Oh dear, Twitch is not behaving. I'm sorry, guys. Too many people are on our internet. We just have to kick some of them off. Simple as that. So what we'll do here, so we can get a nice medium blue for our tiger, scoop some blue into a separate well in the palette here. That's probably way too much, but better to have too much than not enough. And we can always squeeze more of the pure color out of the tube. We don't want to go too light either. We'll do a couple different shades. Having not shot a longbow except once, I'll let Lisabetta answer that, whether it would be an easy target or not. So we'll add, that was a lot of scoops of blue. We'll add 3 or 4 little brushfuls of white. And that lightens it up quite a bit. Can you see that? No, we can't. Okay, that's fine. So I'll move this. And don't do what I'm about to do, because we may spill paint all over. We may not. Could be fun, either way. So we can see this here is the ultramarine straight out of the tube. And then that was, I scooped probably 8 brushfuls of the pure color into here and added about 3 little brushfuls of the white. And that is a decently medium blue shade. So we'll try that for Sparky up here. Get our tiger paint. It doesn't take a whole lot of white to change the color, and it takes even less color when you add to white. So and I know that I'm mixing M-gram blue with whole bean white. Sometimes brands don't necessarily play very well together all the time, but these seem to be. There's Sparky's little foot, and we'll paint the back ear, the one that's behind, with the darker blue. Get our shadows in there early. And just kind of have to remember where I put his foot, because we're going to go right over the whole thing. And he's just hanging out at the top of the page. Happy little tigers. Well, no, it's literally his ear. One little tiny pointy tiger ear. And here's where having a nice pointy brush comes in handy, as they just sort of get right in there. And there's Sparky's ear, second ear. So there, kitty, tiger kitty. And we'll definitely want to add some more white to that, because I don't think, there's some difference, but I'm going to add more white because we're all done with that particular medium blue. Add a little bit more white to our blue and make it a light medium blue. You can start giving him stripes, because everybody loves stripes, although medieval bestiary tigers are actually polka dotted, and oftentimes you will see them staring into a mirror as the knight rides away with their cubs. They were supposedly very distractible creatures, and but that was one way you could kidnap the tiger's cubs, by making them stare at their reflection, because they're a vain animal. I don't know. Yes, there are definitely also interesting depictions of wild animals. So I think I've added as much white as we can add, so I'm going to add blue to the white, and we'll get our lightest blue. That'll work. So here's I added a little bit more white to this blue, and it didn't change it all that much. So I took a bit of that mix and I put it directly into my white well, and now that is a lovely light blue. I think I'm actually going to go over Sparky here with the lightened medium blue and see if that's any different. So this is what's great about gouache. You can paint over it if you don't like it. If you start building up too many layers, you got to be careful, because it will chip and flake off. But so far, I think we're okay with this second thin layer on Sparky here. So I'll wait for that to dry. So while we're waiting on that, we can take our lightest blue and start doing details on the leaves. Typically on your bar and ivy leaves, the points are tipped in white, and then we have a white that goes on top of that, a bright white. Yes, panthers have the multicolored spots. They are very exciting party animals, and disco balls, I think, came from them. And kidnapping wild cubs worked. Yes, exactly. That's how it all worked. Live critters, and obviously they were blue with speckles. Okay, so that medium blue is drying nicely. A little bit more contrast between the ears now and the body, but we'll put a nice little tip on all of these blue leaves and get some contrast in there. Just little bits on the bottom. And we'll do the same thing with the red in a minute. I like to do what I can all in one color without rinsing the brush, just to keep things simple. Depending on what colors you're doing, it's also a good idea to mix your rinse out your rinse water cup. These are all, the red and the blue, they're not they're not going to fight with each other too much. But if you um, if you're going from like dark blues to yellows, definitely want to rinse out your rinse water before you rinse your brush, because your yellows will quickly become green if you get some blue in there. And Josh is a very good typer. Oh, whispers. I don't know what a whisper is.
Basically private message.
Ah, okay. There we are. Nope, you'll just have to tell everybody what you want to say. Okay, so now, because, oops, that's the wrong color blue. Even though it's a medieval tiger, we're gonna make it a modern Eastern tiger, which actually the modern Eastern tigers don't have spots or stripes or anything, but I like putting stripes on mine because they're cute. And I like kitties, so we're going to make him a kitty. So a little bit of chin action going on there. Little white belly. And there's a foot going in there somewhere, so we'll kind of like so. Highlights and a white tippy tail. There's this happening here. And we have some stripities coming down from the ears. And stripities on the back. Stripities. There's your technical terms. And little white pauses. And then tigers have dark stripes as well. So we'll get a little dark stripity there. And a nose. And we'll get his foot in here. Crouching tiger, invisible dragon. Well, if you've closed all your tabs, how many tabs did you have open? There's the next question. Okay, so we have a little stripy tiger. Now we'll get into the red with the white work. So I'm gonna scoop a whole bunch of red into here. And add just a little bit, and we'll open up the brand new titanium white that's never been used before. Hopefully this isn't breaking the seal, and now all these paints are gonna just dry out. Dry out immediately because I've, never opened them. But now we're done. Oh, and there's, so sometimes, well, all the time really, I just usually mix it in. New paint, I don't know how well we can see that. It's got a kind of a clear goo on top, right near where the, right under the cap. I believe that is gum arabic, and it helps, or whatever the binder is on the paints, and I think that just helps it stay liquid until you open it and start using it. Other artists will use gouache much quicker than SCA artists, I think, because we thin it so much. But we'll mix that in, getting a very nice pink, light red. Only 6 tabs. Oh, I can't remember the time I only had 6 tabs. Oh, and Twig is going to, yeah, he's counting. Oh boy. We'll see you all in about 5 minutes.
8 total, but I've also got work up.
Ah, okay, 8 including work. That's not bad at all for you. All right, so here we have lovely light red. There's a chunk of white paint there that didn't quite get mixed in, but that's a nice, different enough color so that we can add it to the tips of the red leaves, and it will give us a base to put the white over. So the reason why, well, there's multiple reasons. One, there's shading in the extant manuscripts. A second reason why we paint the paler color is white will oftentimes pull the color up that you're painting over it. It's very frustrating if you don't have it mixed quite right. So painting with a pale, a lightened shade of your base color helps with that pulling a bit. And I might need to go a step lighter on the red, because even though it looks a lot different on the palette, it's not looking a whole lot different here on the page. But we'll let it dry and see how we do. Might just have to squeeze a little bit of white in there and go for pale. Yep. And this is why swatches are a thing. I've never gotten into doing swatches really, just sort of wing it. When I do the squash bug, I will swatch more, just because there's so many colors in use at once. You want to make sure they all play nicely together. So now I've turned it into more of a bubblegum pink, and that will definitely be visible on our red leaves here. Oh yes, much better. Much better. So get that kind of feathered in there. And there's a lot of technical discussion happening on the chat, I can see. Thanks everybody for hanging in there. Video buffering is no fun, but we can go back and catch up anyway, at least when it's over. I shall be eternally on the internet. Oh dear God. Terrifying. There's the last little dot of red leaf. So now we're going to get into more detail. So a thinner brush. If you have a brush with a really nice point, you can use it for everything. The brush I have been using does in fact have a really nice point, but my hands aren't being nice to me today, so we're going to go to one of the little bitty 10-aught or 20-aught lining brushes for this next step. And I think we've done this comparison before. The 20-aught Princeton Select Petite is about the same size as the 10-aught Low Cornell regular liner, just has slightly longer bristles. So I don't pretend to understand the sizing system for the brushes here, but there we are. Mean old hands. Yeah, they go crunch sometimes. The finest, pointiest size out of what I've got here or what's available, Gwen? I think the smallest I've seen in stores is a 20-0 liner. There's also 20-0 manuscript liners, which are even longer bristled. You can hold more paint. the longer bristle you have, but it'll also dry on the brush, which is not a good thing. You can get into pinstriping brushes, which have, 2-inch long bristles for doing long, long lines on, cars, motorcycles, things like that. I haven't gotten up the courage to try one of those yet. So, but for the detail work here, we're going to start with the red, and the white work in the long skinny vines is a simple line going right down the middle of the skinny vine here. So it depends on, which direction your hand is most comfortable moving in. I don't think it's vertically for me, but that's how it's working for the video, so we're gonna do it that way. And this lighter shade of your base color will just give you a guide and make it a little easier to put the white on over it. Now on the bars, you can do all kinds of different patterns and things. Yes, don't touch the edges, the buzzer goes off and then everything explodes. It's scary. for the edges there. Ugrain of Kelswood down in Carolingia has done up a beautiful white work handout that I will post up at the end of this, and she collected years ago a whole bunch of different white work patterns from all kinds of different manuscripts. So rather than reinvent the wheel, she's given permission to share it through the SCA, which is quite nice. Thank you, Ugrain. But there's geometric patterns, there's little blobby things, there's things that look like waves, all kinds of different stuff. As long as it's consistent and well spaced, doesn't really matter what you do. Again, anything overtly modern, we kind of sometimes look the other way. But if you can make stormtrooper helmets, look nice in white work, go for it. We're talking computers again. Yeah, Netscape Navigator. That's how old is your computer there? So we'll get some patterns here, and you can also, take your, assuming this is dry, it should be dry. Take your ruler and you can kind of go right down the middle. So if you want to do a zigzag, put a marker at a little tiny dot at every 1/4 inch or so, whatever works well for your particular, oh, I'm not in the middle there, but that's okay. I think we can make it work. Whatever works for your particular pattern. Well, this could get interesting. I'm just gonna sort of eyeball it. We'll do zigzags. Like so. Yeah. So my little dots weren't super helpful. Would have been if I was in the middle of the bar. There we are. So there's a nice zigzag, and then we come in here in the middles and do things like this. Kind of continue the leaf motif, and you can fill in parts of it because that's a detail as well. Now I've done it in one direction, I have to rewire my brain to do it in the other. loops there and a little triangle. And for this, you can see I've switched brushes to a shorter bristle. Gives me a little bit more control in smaller areas and smaller space needs. I'm not doing big long lines of paint, so the bristles can be smaller. Okay, so working backwards, up and there. Triangle. Little triangle there. And the middle one. And what we'll do is the same thing on the blue with our lightest blue that we used for tiger stripes. So should the white work? The white work should be super stark white once we get to it. The brighter, the cleaner the white, the brighter and more sparkly your finished piece will be. It's amazing what happens when you add the white. And that's what is so frustrating about it, because the white paint tends to want to do its own thing, which is why I have fallen in love with Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White, which is actually a calligraphy ink. And it seems to behave a little bit better as far as staying opaque on that. So now we'll move on. We did the little blue dots on the leaves already, so we'll move on to the blue line. Nice little one here. And for the lower leaf there, oops, wibbly hands. For the lower leaf, you can see I did not outline the whole thing, even though this is a much simpler style. And I should have switched back to the other brush. There's what we do. We just hold on to one brush the whole time. Even though this is a much simpler style than the more realistic squashed bug type, it still follows some rules as far as light goes. So we're assuming, as with most medieval manuscripts, that the light comes from upper left and goes down to the right. So this is going to be your highlight bit, and the upper bit, because it's a round object, that little leaf may be in shadow. So as long as you're consistent with where you put your lighting and all your leaves, life is good. White paint a little on the dry side. Yeah, that helps too. You may not be able to get as long a line, but if you're cussing less, that's a good thing. All right, so let's see, maybe we can measure a little bit better. And we'll do dots on the edge. And we'll see how that goes. Right there. Right there. See if that's... And you can draw, also with pencil. Ooh, and since I started, no, that's all right. Okay. Again, very few hard and fast rules on this one. And I'm not just saying that to make class easier. You can do whatever makes your little heart happy. And we're just gonna make lines. I've gone outside the lines. I've gone rogue illuminator. Look out all. Not exactly even. You do you. On a period scroll, measure better. Even on somebody's AOA, measure better. Don't illuminate tired, she says, as she's up till 1 o'clock in the morning sometimes. But also, if the paint is working, you don't want to stop because you might never get that perfect paint again. You know how it goes. Funny little Christmas trees. And I did them the same here, but all your white work in your borders doesn't have to be the same. It doesn't have to be related. You can do circles in one bit and squares and triangles in the other and waves in a third. They did a lot of different styles of white work in the same scroll, oftentimes. So be creative. Find your patterns. So there's the last bit of shading we'll do. Dream and love, sleep illuminated. I haven't done that yet. Imagine things that I've painted or painted things that I didn't realize I've painted. Not yet. I'm sure it's coming. All right, next step up is white work, and I'm gonna grab another palette here. Nope, I'm gonna grab Dr. Martin. And we'll see how dry he is. Not bad. Toothpick. It separates. Mix it up. If you can stir rather than shake, that's often better, because if you shake it, you get bubbles, and then the bubbles go onto the page, and it's just a general pain in the neck to try and get them out. So that looks pretty good as far as consistency goes. I'll put the cap back on. So this is what we use for white, Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed-proof white since 1934. Dr. P.H. Martin, they have a whole line of calligraphy inks and India inks, different inks. Some are color fast, some are not. So if you get into the colored inks for any reason, it's good to make sure that what you're putting on your scrolls or putting on your artwork will be there in 10 years, no matter how much sunlight they get exposed to. A lot of early period SCA scrolls have what are now blank spots, because the earlier scribes used some red ink that was not light fast, and after 10 years on a wall, it's faded and there's no more name or no more award name or no more royalty that gave it out. So we've learned in the last several years, many years, decades, different techniques come on. So loading up the little short bristle brush, and hopefully here's where the magic happens and it becomes a sparkly, lovely scroll. Oh, except it's not behaving tonight, and sometimes that happens too. It doesn't want to flow, and then it'll go blorp and I might regress. Nope, we're using paint. So sometimes Dr. P.H. Martin doesn't wanna. at least with that brush. I could try it with another brush. Maybe we'll try it with another brush. So this is a very nice brush, thicker, but it has a good point. So we load it up. We'll start up here. And as long as it's not too thin. Yeah, that's not even flowing. So Dr. Martin and I are going to have a discussion later. But right now we'll get some white paint. M. Graham Titanium White. We'll give it a try, see if it's comparable to Winsor & Newton. There goes all the gum arabic. So there's what happened when I squeezed the very front of the titanium white tube. Pure gum arabic came out. And some people, if I were using more paint than what I'm going to squeeze out, I would just mix that right in. But I think it would thin it too much. So we'll wipe out most of that and just start with water. And whatever little bit is still at the front, well, there's a lot bit. So, well, let's see what happens. Ugh. Okay, so this is promising. It's at least white colored, or white and clean. So that's without any water added in, and just with what was left of the gum arabic from the tube. So we'll see how that goes. We'll try our little pointy brush again. It's not bubbling at the tip, so that's a good sign. It was beading up before. Here we go, and there's lovely, nice white line happening. So white work again is patience and practice are key. And the other key is getting the white paint exactly right, which is more patience and more practice, and occasionally some swearing. We do that. Tried to repeat the white you did on the red. Oh yes, blooping brushes. So when your brush bloops, Gwen and everybody, you can paint over it. You can decide to live with it and don't tell anybody. Those are, you know, two options. We should do a session on fixing mistakes, intentional mistakes. Oh, I think the buzzer went off. Nope, not quite. Not quite. Didn't quite hit the edge. But yeah, the real nice thing about gouache is you can go over it most of the time. Oh no, no buffering. Well, catch up afterwards. It was good to see you, Lisbetta. And Gwen, you'll just have to show me your art afterwards, and we'll see how obvious it is. You know it's there. We always know our own mistakes, which are not mistakes. Sometimes they're happy accidents. But we all know our own stuff and what makes it weird. So M. Graham gouache is behaving better than Dr. Martin here tonight, and we're getting some good solid white coverage. I suspect I needed to mix the ink a little bit more because it did settle out quite a bit. So we'll play with that after class. But there's the lovely white along the bar. And in here, so the areas inside the bars that we filled in, you don't want to go over that whole thing with white. You just want to outline it. Because that's the shading that comes in with the white, and this is doing quite nice things. And this is why sometimes you stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning, because the white paint is perfect and you know you'll never get it that way again. And you have to finish. Don't question the art. But you can see, hopefully, how much this is popping. I've now done half the red. You can really hopefully see the difference between the top and the bottom. Half of that. And just for fun, we'll do the same thing on the blue. And then go back and finish it up once we've had time to kind of marvel at the difference and how beautiful and sparkly the white makes everything. And then we'll do some white up there on Sparky because he needs some white. But having the lighter blue and the lighter red underneath the white again helps the bleed through problem. So if you can take the time and have the patience to do that underlayer, it comes in very helpful often. So yeah, we're going out both. You don't have to worry about covering up every single little bit of the lines because you do get some shading in there. But like I say, where I filled in the shape, like the little triangles at the bottom, that gives you a little bit more sense of depth to the white work, getting that shade in there. And we'll do the same thing on the leaves. We're not going to go over the entire little blob that I put on all the tips. We're just going to do a little swoop on the tip, because that's it's your shading for the white work for this style. It's a fairly, as far as the borders go, it's a fairly flat style. There's not a lot of depth to it. You don't get the shadows like you do in the Flemish, the squashed bug. So the little bit of just different shades of the same color are what's going to make it more visually interesting. And again, not all the Bar and Ivy has the different shades of blue or shades of red. Some of it is just blue with white. And there's other styles where you can do the hash mark shading. This is only one little example. There's all kinds of different ways of getting your depth in a small amount of palette space. So yeah, that looks pretty good in there. And we'll do the little bits on the leaves, which is just a little tiny bloop here, and sometimes we have a center stem that comes up. I might paint over that afterwards, but and this is where the time comes in sometimes. It's the detail work. All the ground goes in pretty easy. But like here, I'm mostly covering just because of the nature of the paint. But you'll be able to see a little bit of pink and a little bit of light blue behind the white. And the gold doesn't get any detail at all. It's just gold. This is gold paint, so we could paint over it, but the gold, if it were gold leaf, which in period the manuscripts were generally, I don't think they used shell gold much. Hi, Elsa! Good to see you. You can paint this. This is we went kind of back to basics this week. Yay, 3 colors. But yeah, the gold, the shell gold had kind of gone away. At this point, it was raised gilding again, or flat gilding, but it was gold, and there's not a lot of pigment based things that will stick to gold. They embossed, but there's very few manuscripts I've found with embossing on the leaves on the sides. Usually it's in the background of the miniature that's on the page. So there's all the white in the leaves. And now we need white for Sparky up there. Last little details on our tiger. And we'll get a little white tippy tail. And little white paws. And little white ear tips. Kind of like so. And his eye in here. There we go. And that, and a little bit of shading on his back foot. And on the neck. Here. Kitty. Now we get into black outline. And this is where everything becomes very smooth and lovely, and we cover up any whoopses we made. Not that there are many. So I've got just a little tiny thing of black here when I had to squeeze out the last of my paint tube because it had dried out. Get all the white paint off the mixing brush so we don't turn it gray. So Bar and Ivy is one of the only styles where your outlines are going to be black. Typically in your earlier and later period pieces, burnt sienna, you know, a nice dark brown is what you're going to find, because black is just, it's black. It's very stark. It's not a natural thing, really. Your shadow isn't even black. It's a very dark gray or a bluish gray. So this is not an artificial style, but it's stylized. That looks about right. And the black paint is much more forgiving than the white. I've almost never had a problem, now we say this, keeping my black lines consistent and dark. So it's a much friendlier thing than the white. So get that on there. And we'll see how we go. So the vines, I'm gonna kind of start in the middle here. Everything gets outlined. And your vines you want to keep as natural as you can. Nice even flow. And sometimes in hiding the sins you make them. There we go. A little thicker there. And if you don't line up exactly with your pencil lines, neither did the medieval monks. So there's a bit of built-in forgiveness there. Go up and down. And anybody looking at that close is either a scribe or a nitpicker. Everything is going to get outlined, except Sparky. Maybe we'll outline Sparky. But the outlining of the gold, like the white work on the blue, just makes it pop, come right off the page. A little bit, half a drop here. I like doing it last. Some people will do the outlining first and kind of fill in around it. I find that if I do that, I end up going back over everything anyway. So I just do it once at the end, and then I know it's done, and I can put the scroll away. And there's some pieces I've gone kind of close to the edge of our bookmark here to do any detailing, but a lot of the manuscripts will put little black squiggles and dots everywhere, mostly squiggles at the points of your gold leaves, just as a further detail, which is kind of fun. And the more you study these, the more things you'll see and pick up, and the better your pieces will look. And this is where a lot of scribes will break out the micron pens, and that's a thing you can do. I think they look gray once you get them on the paper. So I'll either use, if you're using ink, you just have to be aware that most inks, or water-based inks anyway, will re-wet your gouache if you aren't quite so careful. So be aware that you may get some bleeding depending on how viscous your ink is. Black gouache doesn't seem to have that issue, at least for me tonight. Again, you don't want to mix it too wet, because then it will get streaky. A slightly thicker paint will give you the opportunity to do some different things. But you just kind of work your way down the page, and you can totally load it into a pen, a crow quill. And it will do what it does. If you do it in a pen, it'll have to be a little thinner, just to get the flow right. And you'll want to play with it, practice with it a few places. Make sure you don't have too much bleed through. But a nice, short bristled brush like this one, I have generally plenty of control. Just keep going. And this is the part that takes the time. So don't wait till the last minute before an event to finish your scroll, because you will be painting in the back of court if you haven't done all your outlining. I have never done that. I'm not a combat scribe. It's not a thing for me. I need my table and my light. I don't work well under pressure. Some people love it. Some people can sit in the back of court or somebody's tent. My Grand Laurel Bryn would do a scroll every G&E, maybe not every G&E, but many of them. And she'd just sit in the tent and paint, and by Saturday court, it would be this beautiful work of art, and it would have been a blank piece of paper on Thursday night. She's amazing. She still is. Got a little bit of that, and there's that, and here we go, fixing the Sin of the Mist stem. The leaf is complete. He is attached now to the rest of the stem with his buddies. There we go. So there's the vine, and the rest will get outlined in the same way. And here's where, again, if you can get the ruling pen to behave, the ruling pen and a ruler would be awesome. I have issues with the ruling pen when I'm trying to go over something I've already painted. It just goes blob and I end up swearing at it, and it's just better to use a nice paintbrush that I can control and we don't have words and the lines may not be as perfectly straight, but if you work in short bursts to kind of connect to each other and get a nice outline done, nice border. And here too, on these gold tips, we'll add a little bit of squiggly. As the detail. Go down around the bottom. And up the middle. And the black again, it just smooths everything right out. I'll do little squiggly things like that. And sometimes the lighting is weird and I can't tell where I stop, so here we go. Off the side. I'm not going into the gold. Smoothing out the curves. Yeah, black on the blue, hard to see sometimes. And that's where really good lighting comes in. I have okay lighting here. I have an aught light, and then we've got the chandelier over the table, which has LEDs in it. But sometimes waiting for noontime indirect sun. If you have a south facing or a west facing window in your art room or craft room, great time to do black outlining. Indirect but bright light. Humans are kind of houseplants anyway, sometimes, so liking the same kind of light they do makes some sense. And I know houseplants. Just about there. And here too is where turning the paper comes in awfully handy if you find you're more steady in one direction or the other. Verticals generally work pretty well for me. Okay, there's all of that. We'll give Sparky his little eye. And the nose again. Outline him. And there, I think we have it. Didn't miss any little leaves or stems, and everybody's got a line around him. So I think that wraps it up for this week. We've got all the lines in and all the white work is done, and we have a tiger sitting at the top guarding everything. Maybe 2 more little squiggle lines. Missed some squiggles. This brush. And there we have it. One complete Bar and Ivy bookmark with Eastern pride. Because Sparky the Tiger. So yeah, that's what I got for this week. We'll do this again in 2 weeks. I'm thinking maybe acanthus leaves. That was talked about a bit. So we'll get talking about going back a little later in the SCA period again into the 15th century. Some different shading and detailing there. So until next week, I think, or not next week, 2 weeks, next time, I think we're good, and I hope everybody had a good time. Yes, leaves next week. Next 2 weeks. 2 weeks, leaves. It'll be good. We'll get into the green and the blue and the gold and the pink and the orange. It's a good time. I like acanthus leaves. So everybody have a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining me again, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.